So what is going on, my fellow collectors? How is everybody doing today? Daredevil18 here, and today we have another History of Action Figures video. And today in episode 4 we are featuring none other than one of my all-time favorites since I was a little toddler, or a little kid, and that is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Turtles in the house, yeah. Turtle power.
We have been getting Ninja Turtle figures since 1988, so for almost over 35 years, and personally, I've been getting Ninja Turtle figures since the 90s. There are new TMNT fans born every single day, very similar to Dragon Ball. There's younger fans and older fans. There's so much different merch when it comes to TMNT, from clothes to blankets to plushies, statues, and of course, action figures. So something that's really funny about TMNT is that in the beginning, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, the creators, were having difficulty trying to find a toy company to produce Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles action figures. They tried a bunch of different companies and constantly got turned down because all these toy companies didn't think something so odd would sell good. Plus, TMNT at the beginning was super dark stuff. So definitely not meant for kids, but these toy companies also thought the concept wasn't popular enough to support a toy line. I mean, it does make sense. Just think about the title. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You know, it is kind of odd, but let me tell you how wrong those other figure companies or toy companies were. So at first they did struggle to get this project off the ground, but then they finally found a toy company that accepted their offer, and that brings us to our very first figure company that produced TMNT action figures, which is Playmates Toys. They began the TMNT toy craze back in the late 80s. And you could still find their figures in stores like Walmart and Target today, those same figures. They are reproducing them. Personally, today, I'm not the biggest fan of their figure line. Yeah, they try to make figures not just for kids, but for adult collectors too. And I never got into their version of the TMNT figures that are aimed at adults. To me, they're okay. I do still collect some of their stuff though, but it is awesome to see them try and make figures for both kids and adults, and even the ones aimed for kids are still fun to collect sometimes still. Playmates did agree to make a deal with the TMNT property to make action figures, but they did recommend that they start off with a television show first, which Eastman and Laird agreed to. So from 1988 all the way to 1997, Playmates produced over 400 TMNT action figures, vehicles, and playsets. Within 4 years, they made $1.1 billion. That is insane. At the time, this made them the third best selling toy or figure company ever, putting them behind G.I. Joe and Star Wars. So if you're up there with Star Wars, then you know you have one of the best products, or at least most popular. Also, within that time, from 1988 to 1997, they produced 22 figure waves just in action figures. Playmates is also the top toy company who made the most TMNT action figures, and I think they always will be at the top since they started making them years ago from the late 1980s, and they still are making them today, currently. How incredible is that? Another funny thing about Playmates is that they did not make action figures at first. They only made like stuffed animals or plushies until they accepted the TMNT license. Playmates Toys first made the Turtles from the 1987 cartoon. They made the movie figures from the original trilogy, 1997's Next Mutation. Then for a few years we didn't get anything new until the return of the Turtles in the new 2003 TV series. So then we got a ton more cool, new updated looking figures. Then we got the great design Turtles from the TMNT 2007 movie from Playmates Toys. Then we got a whole bunch of new figures from the 2002 Nickelodeon TV series, then more figures from the reboot movies of the 2014-2016 feature films, then the 2018 Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and last and most recent, we got figures from the new movie Mutant Mayhem. Also, sometime in the 2010s is when they started to try to make more adult collectible figures from the original cartoon to the original movies, from the 1990 movie and Secret of the Ooze. Alright, so now moving on to the next figure company here. When we hit like the mid to the late 2000s in the year 2008, while Playmates is still pumping out TMNT figures, but they're mostly aimed at kids, we did have the awesome Neca Toys come along and make us some amazing TMNT figures. Neca first made individual packaged turtles from the original comic run, and when they all just had the red bandanas. First turtle we got from them was Donnie, followed by Leo, then Mikey, and then after that we didn't get Raph just yet, but we got a Mouser 3-pack for the turtles to beat up until we got a lot of people's favorite turtle, of course, Raphael. Also keep in mind, these were practically the very first Ninja Turtle figures we got with some proper articulation. Each turtle got 20 points of articulation, which is much more than anything Playmates has ever made. So following the individual turtle releases, Neca decided to make us some figures, but in 4-packs. So the first 4-pack we got was those same turtles, but black and white variants. Then they did release those same turtles with the red bandanas. Not too long after that, we got more articulation. You mainly just got the turtles' signature weapons with the Neca figures here. So now that Neca was able to squeeze into the TMNT figure game, things were gonna change. So as Neca continued their line of TMNT figures, we got versions of the turtles adult collectors have wanted for years and years, definitely over a decade or even 2 decades. They hit us with the original 1990 movie Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figures. Fans and collectors lost their minds, including myself, and these instantly became the most sought after figures, and not just TMNT figures, I'm talking about action figures in general. They eventually made the Secret of the Ooze versions, and recently they did the 3rd movie, Turtles in Time, but Neca still to this day keeps making all types of characters from the first 2 original movies, which is awesome. Neca was on a roll because they started the cartoon series line, then they jumped into some TMNT video game versions, and so much more, like the Mirage Comics line that they have, which I personally love. Today the line is probably their top line out of every figure line they make, which is just great to hear. So now let's move on to the next figure line, shall we? So now heading into the year 2014, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Revoltech figures were announced and revealed. And with Revoltech, you got super duper posable action figures that were also more accurate to the show than any of the Playmates toys 2002 basic figure line that they were making from the Nickelodeon series. When these were announced, figure collectors and TMNT fans were extremely excited because we were getting super posable TMNT figures, which we never really got, and pretty much the first import company to touch up on TMNT figures. Yeah, we have Neca, but they aren't extremely super posable like Revoltech or other import companies. Today these figures are worth hundreds of dollars each, which is insane because they originally retailed for around $60. So if you want to get any of them right now, you'll have to pay practically what you pay for rent or your mortgage for all 4 turtles. I do believe they did do a reissue not too long after they first released. I feel like they need to do another reissue of these figures again because there are new collectors out there who missed the first and second time these released. But when these did first release, they were super fun figures. I mean, they still are if you have them today still. The articulation was amazing. You can pose them however you wanted. They even had their fingers articulated. You got a pretty good amount of accessories as well, and the detail was also on point. As I mentioned before, the accuracy was more on point compared to Playmates' versions, but these are the definitive 1/12 scale versions of the 2012 series Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Outstanding job by Revoltech on these. Wish they would have made more characters like Shredder, Splinter, April, and so on, but as we waited, nothing else came out, just the Turtles. I feel like they could have started a new line here that would have sold great, but sadly we never got anything else. So now moving on, 2 years later in 2016, Tamashii Nations decided to make us some 6-inch scale Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figures, and this line looked very promising. They were making versions of the original cartoon series. We got all 4 Turtles in 2016, and they even revealed a Shredder figure as well. So collectors were excited for this line, including myself. Plus, for the first time, we had some die-cast metal in the figures, mainly just in their feet to help them stand and balance well. But these were great figures, and they did not disappoint. Articulation was pretty good, not Tamashii Nations' best, but you got some great accessories, and the detail looked fantastic too. So when the line was cancelled and Shredder never released, collectors were very disappointed. Supposedly the line did not sell as well as Tamashii Nations thought it would, so they ended up canceling it before they could release Shredder, and man, that Toon Shredder looked freaking amazing, so it's a shame it never released. Maybe in the future they'll give it another try, and this time they can do maybe some form of the comic version of the Turtles instead of the cartoon version. That definitely would be awesome, but sadly, this line did not last long at all. So now, heading over to Super 7, and this is more of a recent figure company, so these figures are brand spanking new. These were first teased at San Diego Comic-Con 2018, and all that was shown was a place card, so us collectors had to wait another year to get our actual first looks at these new Super 7 TMNT figures. From what I found researching, it seems like Wave 1 released in 2020, and now in 2023 they have around 30 figures, and the line seems to be going strong because you wouldn't get up to that amount of figures in your line if they did not sell well. But what I love about Super 7 is they make the original versions of the Playmates Turtles figures, but with updated articulation, amazing detail, with beautiful paintwork, and a great amount of accessories. So they are pretty damn good figures. Yeah, they do have issues with loose joints, which I wish they'd fix, because that can be a bit of a problem when you're posing your figure, and poses can't hold because of the loose joints. But really, besides that, they are amazing figures, and if you used to get the original figures as a kid, this line is made for you. Yeah, I'm talking to you, buddy. I do love what they're doing, and I hope they continue to grow, because this line is a great line to collect. Just looking back, how we only had Playmates for years and years until the mid or late 2000s wasn't that great, because Playmates is good and all, but they would also focus more on making figures for kids, so us adult collectors needed more highly detailed and highly articulated figure lines that made TMNT figures. Out of all the companies I covered so far, Neca and Super 7 are still the 2 main figure companies, not counting Playmates, that continue to pump out and make new and more characters in their TMNT figure lines, and I love it. Yeah, I still buy some Playmates here and there, but I need me some more adult-aimed figures to satisfy my TMNT figure collecting habit, and Neca and Super 7 are doing just that. Alright, so for the last and most recent figure line here, we have Best Action, and as I said, they are a newer toy line and are currently making figures today. The scale they make their TMNT figures in is more around like 5.5 inch scale. They have been around since 2009, but they didn't start making Ninja Turtle figures until recently. So now we have another figure company making us some pretty badass TMNT figures. Yeah, they have a few issues here and there, but they'll learn as they go along. They got us with Wave 1 that included characters like Casey Jones, Bebop, Shredder, Foot Soldier, and all the Turtles. Since then, they have made 4 different waves of mainly original cartoon series Ninja Turtle figures. The cartoon series Turtles didn't seem to turn out too good, but Casey Jones, Shredder, and a few other characters are actually really good figures. They also made a ton of exclusives, too. Recently, they made a deal with Paramount to make the IDW comic versions of the Turtles, and I love the direction they are heading with this line, and they have plenty more IDW TMNT characters as well, so expect more in this line, which I can't wait for. What's crazy to me is no other figure company has touched up on current comic versions of the Turtles, so I think that was an incredibly smart move on their behalf. They are still fairly new with Ninja Turtles, and they do have some QC issues here and there, but as I mentioned before, they will probably learn as they go along. Their IDW Turtle figures are much better than their Toon versions, and I'm excited to see what they bring us in the future with this line. You can never go wrong having too many Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles figures, plus Best Action is a more affordable line compared to Neca and Super 7 or import companies. So as we saw back in the 80s and 90s, all we had were Playmates toys, and they were great for the time, but times have definitely changed in the action figure world, and articulation is a huge thing along with detail and accessories. So with all these figure companies getting into the game with TMNT, it's just freaking great. Neca came in with their 7-inch line, and they are absolutely killing it with their Turtles. Then Super 7 recently came along with their 6-inch, 7-inch type scale line, giving us TMNT figures that give off the original Playmates vibe, but more upgrades and updates, which is awesome. They still have a few kinks they need to work out, but they'll get there. And now we got Best Action, which is more of like a 5-inch scale line, but they're giving us versions of Turtles that collectors, along with myself, have been patiently waiting years for, the current comic versions of the Turtles. So right now is a great time to be a TMNT fan and figure collector. Think of where TMNT figures came from in the late 1980s to where they are at today with multiple figure lines and amazing Ninja Turtle figures. Great time to be a collector, I tell ya. Thanks for watching, and don't forget, I will catch you on the next episode of Daredevil 19. And I will also see you guys later.
We shall start with revenge. I am the knight. Gonna change the future.